What if every choice you think you've made, from picking your breakfast to deciding your career, was never truly yours to begin with? What if your brain had already decided long before you even felt the urge to act? This isn't some science fiction fantasy or a late-night philosophical musing. This is the very real, very unsettling question that neuroscience is actively wrestling with. Do we actually possess free will, or is it just a powerful, convincing illusion created by our brains? Today, we're diving deep into the cutting-edge science that challenges one of humanity's most cherished beliefs. Exploring experiments that seem to peer into the future of our actions and asking what it all means for who we are. Prepare to have your understanding of decision-making, responsibility, and even consciousness itself put under the microscope. For centuries, the idea of free will has been a cornerstone of human experience. It's the feeling that we are the masters of our own destiny, that we consciously choose our paths, our thoughts, and our actions. Think about it. When you decide to lift your hand, to speak a specific word, or even to spend your Saturday binge watching your favorite show, you feel like you're in control, right? This conscious ability to choose and control our actions isn't just a nice feeling. It's fundamental to how we build societies. Our entire legal system, for instance, is built on the premise that individuals are responsible for their actions because they chose to perform them. Morality, accountability, punishment, reward, all these concepts lean heavily on the belief that we are free agents. But here's where things get interesting and potentially a little uncomfortable. In recent decades, neuroscience has begun to poke holes in this deeply ingrained belief. As we've developed more sophisticated tools to peek inside the living brain, a growing body of evidence suggests that our conscious decisions might not be the starting point of our actions, but rather a kind of after-the-fact announcement. This sparks a profound debate. Is free will a genuine aspect of our being? Or is it simply a brilliant, complex illusion, a trick our brains play on us to give us a sense of agency? The core of this neuroscientific challenge boils down to a simple yet mind-bending hypothesis. What if brain activity, the electrical and chemical dance happening inside your skull, dictates your actions before you're even consciously aware of making a decision? Imagine your brain as a super advanced computer, running programs and making calculations, and your conscious mind as merely the monitor displaying the results, sometimes a little late. This idea really took center stage thanks to the pioneering work of a scientist named Benjamin Libet in the 1980s. Libet wasn't trying to disprove free will. He was just curious about the timing of conscious intention and action. His experiments were deceptively simple, but incredibly clever. He asked volunteers to do something very basic: flick their wrist whenever they felt like it. The catch? They had to watch a clock face and remember the exact moment they first felt the conscious urge or decision to move. Meanwhile, Libet was recording their brain activity using an electroencephalography, or EEG, which measures electrical signals on the scalp. He was particularly looking for something called RP, which is a specific neural signature, a surge of electrical activity that builds up in the brain a little before a voluntary movement. What Libet found was groundbreaking and to many deeply unsettling. He observed that this readiness potential, this neural sign that the brain was preparing for action, appeared up to a full second, sometimes even more, before the participant consciously reported their decision or urge to move. Think about that for a moment. Your brain was already getting ready to flick your wrist, perhaps even a whole second, before you consciously thought, okay, now I'm going to flick my wrist. Libet's initial interpretation was stark. The brain decides. Unconsciously first, and our subjective experience of choice then seems to follow, almost like an announcement of a decision already made. It's like your brain is setting things in motion and then sends a memo to your conscious mind saying, hey, we're doing this. Now, these were the 80s, and technology has come a long way. Subsequent research, using even more advanced neuroimaging techniques like fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, has not only confirmed Libet's findings, but pushed them further. Instead of just general brainwaves, fMRI allows scientists to pinpoint specific brain regions involved in decision-making with much greater accuracy. Studies by researchers like John Dylan Haynes at the Bernstein Center for Computational Neuroscience in Berlin have shown that decisions about something as simple as pressing a left or right button can be predicted by looking at brain activity. In regions like the prefrontal and parietal cortex, up to a whopping 10 seconds before a person is consciously aware of their choice. Yes, you heard that right, 10 seconds. Imagine watching a person's brain on a screen and seeing the decision, forming long before they have any conscious inkling of it themselves. These patterns of activity in specific brain regions seem to predict choices even before conscious awareness kicks in. This suggests that our actions are not necessarily born in the light of conscious deliberation, but are rather determined by underlying neural processes that operate beneath the surface of our awareness. This kind of evidence really starts to chip away at the notion that we have an unconstrained, conscious choice at the helm of every action. It paints a picture where our conscious will is more of an observer than the actual commander-in-chief, perhaps influencing the flow of things, but not necessarily initiating them. Of course, this isn't a one-sided story. The idea that free will is an illusion is a pretty big pill to swallow. And many scientists and philosophers have raised important counterarguments and criticisms against these deterministic interpretations. It's crucial to remember that science thrives on debate and rigorous scrutiny. One major point of contention revolves around the limitations of the experimental design itself. Critics argue that Libet's original experiments and many of the follow-up studies involve incredibly simplistic actions. Flicking a wrist or pressing a button left or right are trivial decisions, very different from the complex, multi-layered choices we make in real life, like deciding to get married, change careers, or vote for a political candidate. These laboratory settings, while controlled, might fail to capture the rich complexity of human decision-making, which often involves deep reflection, emotional processing, and a continuous back and forth between different options. Is it fair to generalize findings from such simple tasks to the entirety of human volition? Many would say no. Then there's the reinterpretation of the itself. Some researchers argue that the RP might not be a specific neural command for a particular action, but rather a more general preparation for any movement or even just for staying attentive. Think of it like your brain warming up, or getting into a state of readiness, a sort of background hum, rather than issuing a specific go command for a precise action. If the RP is just a general preparedness signal, then its appearance before conscious awareness doesn't necessarily mean your brain has made the specific choice. It just means it's ready for something to happen. The issue of ecological validity also looms large. As mentioned, these experiments are conducted in highly controlled laboratory settings, which are a far cry from the messy, unpredictable, and often high-stakes environment of everyday life. Our real-world decisions are influenced by an incredible array of factors: our upbringing, culture, personal values, emotional state, past experiences, and future goals. A simple button press in a lab doesn't tap into this intricate web of influences. Therefore, critics question whether findings from such artificial conditions can accurately reflect the complexities of real-world decision-making. If the environment isn't like the real world, how much can we truly learn about real-world choices? Finally, there are proponents who argue strongly for the continuing vital role of consciousness. Even if brain activity precedes awareness, they contend that this doesn't automatically negate consciousness altogether. They suggest that consciousness might not be the initial instigator of every tiny action, but it could play a crucial role in shaping, refining, or even vetoing those unconsciously generated urges. Imagine your brain unconsciously generating an impulse to say something rude. Your conscious mind, drawing on social norms and empathy, might step in and say, "Hold on, maybe not. This free won't." Or the ability to consciously inhibit an action that has already been initiated by the brain is a significant counterargument proposed by Libet himself later in his work. So, while consciousness might not always be the very first spark, it could still be an active and powerful participant in the ongoing process of decision-making. The subjective experience of choice, that undeniable feeling that we are choosing, is considered a vital aspect of human experience that should not be dismissed as irrelevant or a mere illusion. To simply say, "It's all an illusion because the brain moved first," might be an oversimplification of a much more nuanced and intricate dance between unconscious neural processes and conscious oversight. So, where do we stand on this challenging and absolutely fascinating question of free will in neuroscience? It's clear that there's no simple, universally accepted answer. This isn't a topic with a neat, tidy conclusion that fits into a tweet. Instead, it's a vibrant, ongoing debate that continues to push the boundaries of what we understand about the mind, the brain, and what it truly means to be human. What the neuroscientific evidence strongly suggests is that the brain plays a deeply significant, perhaps even primary role in determining our actions. The idea that all our decisions spring forth fully formed and initiated by our conscious minds seems less tenable than it once did. The experiments from Libet, Haynes, and many others have undeniably shown that our brains are often in motion, preparing and even predicting actions long before we become consciously aware of our decisions. This challenges our intuitive sense of being completely in control, of our conscious self being the absolute starting gun for every single action. However, it's equally important to acknowledge that our understanding remains incomplete. The criticisms leveled against these deterministic views are powerful and highlight the need for more sophisticated research. We're still grappling with the full complexity of human decision-making, which involves not just simple movements, but long-term goals, moral considerations, and our unique personal histories. the scientific journey into the depths of the brain is far from over. Future research will undoubtedly continue to focus on this intricate interplay between brain activity and conscious experience. How do unconscious processes feed into conscious thought? What is the true role of consciousness, if not always the initiator? Is there a difference between the conscious veto, power, and initial conscious choice? These are the kinds of questions that researchers are still exploring. Understanding the essence of human agency, that feeling of being that acts in the world, will require bridging the gap between objective brain data and subjective experience. A task that remains one of science's greatest frontiers. Perhaps free will isn't an either-or proposition, but a spectrum, or even a continuous dialogue between our hidden brain processes and our conscious selves. The journey to truly understand it is just beginning. If this deep dive into the brain has got your own neurons firing, make sure to check out our next video on consciousness itself.